Picture this. You're a veteran coming home to a shocking sight, a sprawling condo development on your land, built with deceit and fraud. This is the story of how I turned the tables. I still remember the moment I stepped off the plane after my deployment, expecting a quiet return to my small hometown, only to be greeted by chaos and disbelief. I had served my country with honor, leaving behind a life where duty and sacrifice meant everything, but nothing could have prepared me for what awaited me back home. As I drove along the familiar country roads, a nagging feeling of unease grew stronger by the minute. When I finally arrived at my family's property, an expanse of land passed down from my grandfather, I was stunned to see a row of sleek, modern condos lined up where once there were just open fields and old oak trees. I soon discovered that 83 luxury condos had been built on my land, and to make matters worse, the local homeowners association, led by the formidable Eleanor Walsh, had forged my signature on legal documents to give their project a green light. At first, I thought it must be a misunderstanding. I approached the security guard on the property, who eyed me with suspicion as if he expected a different kind of visitor. "Excuse me, can you tell me what's going on here?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. The guard, with a mixture of fear and reluctance, explained that someone at the south entrance had already claimed ownership. It was then that a sleek black SUV pulled up and outstepped Eleanor Walsh herself, impeccably dressed in a tailored suit, her eyes cold and calculating. With a practiced smile, she introduced herself as the president of Sunset Shores HOA, insisting that all proper channels had been followed for the construction. But as I pulled out my phone and showed her photos of the empty land from just a few months before my deployment, her confident facade began to crumble. I soon learned that while I was serving overseas, the HOA had moved swiftly, even brazenly, to begin construction. It wasn't just poor communication, it was fraud. They had manipulated legal documents, and, even more shockingly, they had altered property boundary markers by a full 200 feet, encroaching on the very land my grandfather had left me. My heart pounded as I realized the enormity of the deception. With every new piece of evidence, the situation grew darker. Forged signatures, doctored contracts, and a network of bribed officials, all orchestrated to keep control of this lucrative piece of real estate. Determined not to let this injustice go unchallenged, I immediately contacted my old friend from the service, Tom, who now worked as a lawyer. Over countless late-night calls and frantic meetings, we pored over every document, every map, and every detail of the development. Tom confirmed what I had feared. The HOA had deliberately manipulated property surveys and even used intimidating tactics to silence any dissent. Soon, the issue escalated beyond a simple property dispute. It became a full-blown legal battle that threatened the livelihood of the 83 families who had bought into the fraudulent scheme, unknowingly living in homes built on stolen land. I arranged a public meeting at the community center, hoping to clear the air and expose the truth. The room was packed with residents, their faces etched with worry and disbelief. Some had even begun to panic, convinced that I was planning to demolish their homes with my demolition company, a detail that I never expected to come into play until Eleanor's team tried to twist the narrative against me. They claimed I was heartless and would forcefully evict families in the name of justice. I had to explain, calmly and clearly, that my business had nothing to do with greed or destruction. In fact, I intended to use my expertise to restore what was rightfully mine, not to harm innocent homeowners. During that tense meeting, a county surveyor stepped forward and presented official maps that corroborated my suspicions. The markers had indeed been moved, and it was clear that the HOA's so-called approvals were nothing more than cleverly forged documents. The atmosphere in the room shifted from uncertainty to outrage. As heated words were exchanged, I felt a surge of determination. I wasn't just fighting for my property, I was fighting for justice for all those who had been duped by the corrupt practices of a powerful organization. The legal proceedings that followed were nothing short of dramatic. In the courtroom, the Walsh's legal team tried to paint me as the villain, a demolition magnate with a cold heart, when in truth, I was the victim of their elaborate fraud. They brought in doctored evidence and questionable testimonies, but Tom and I had prepared meticulously. We presented undeniable proof, original photographs of the property before any construction began, military records confirming my absence during the alleged approval process, and sworn affidavits from the county surveyor and other witnesses. I vividly remember the moment when the judge granted a temporary injunction, halting further construction until every aspect of the fraud could be thoroughly investigated. It was a small victory, yet a significant one, as it meant the condos could not be finished or modified without proper legal scrutiny. Just when it seemed the battle was turning in my favor, a shocking revelation came to light. Olivia Bennett, a determined journalist with a reputation for uncovering hidden truths, provided us with damning security footage from the planning department. The footage clearly showed high-level officials meeting behind closed doors, discussing how to manipulate property records and push through the illegal development. Olivia's investigation revealed that the corruption went much deeper than a single rogue HOA. It was a systematic abuse of power that extended into county offices and local government. With each new piece of evidence, the scandal grew, and public sentiment began to swing in our favor. People who had once feared retribution now found the courage to speak out. But as the pressure mounted, so did the dangers. One evening, as I was reviewing bank records obtained by Olivia, I discovered that there had been several mysterious payments made to an offshore account connected to the HOA. This financial trail hinted at bribery and collusion at the highest levels. I couldn't help but wonder how many more secrets lay hidden beneath the surface. The stakes were rising, and it became clear that the fight for justice was far from over. I received a cryptic call late one night from an informant who claimed to have more incriminating evidence. My heart raced as I listened, knowing that every new detail brought us closer to dismantling the entire operation. In the midst of this turmoil, the situation with the residents reached a critical point. At another public meeting, held in a storm of accusations and heated emotions, Eleanor and her cohorts tried one final desperate move. They announced an emergency fee, a steep legal defense fund that every resident had to contribute to or risk losing their homes. The move was met with shock and outrage. Families who had already been victims of fraud were being pressured for more money. I stood up amidst the chaos, my voice trembling with a mix of anger and determination, and declared that no one should have to pay for someone else's crimes. It was a bold statement, and, for a moment, the room fell silent. Then, one by one, the residents began to rally behind me. Their trust was shifting, and soon enough, the public outcry reached the ears of the FBI. Within days, high-ranking officials from the FBI arrived on the scene. In a dramatic turn of events that felt almost cinematic, Eleanor Walsh and her top aides were arrested on charges of fraud, forgery, and conspiracy. I remember feeling a mix of relief and sorrow, relief that justice was finally catching up, but sorrow for the 83 families who had been caught in the crossfire of this corrupt scheme. The news was relentless, with reporters capturing every moment, and I found myself at the center of a story that was bigger than any one person. Despite the media frenzy, I knew my fight wasn't just about my land. It was about restoring trust and ensuring that no one else would fall victim to such manipulative tactics. In the aftermath of the arrests and the legal battles, a new plan was set in motion. Instead of demolishing the illegally built condos, which could have displaced so many families, I decided to turn this dark chapter into a new beginning. I announced that I would be selling the units to their current residents at half the market price, with special discounts for veterans and first responders. The idea was simple: let the people who had already invested their hopes and dreams into these homes keep them, while transforming the development into a community that truly served its residents. I also made sure that the undeveloped portion of the property would be converted into a community playground and garden, a place where neighbors could gather, and where the spirit of togetherness could flourish. As the final pieces fell into place, I took one last walk along the property line at sunset, the sky painted in brilliant shades of orange and pink. I couldn't help but feel a deep sense of closure and optimism for the future. The journey had been long and fraught with betrayal, corruption, and heartache, but it had also shown me the incredible strength of community and the importance of standing up for what's right. In that quiet moment, with the gentle hum of life resuming around me, I knew that this story was far from over. It was just the beginning of a new chapter for Sunset Shores and for all those who believed in justice, fairness, and the power of unity. And so, as I wrap up this tale, I leave you with this thought. Even in the face of overwhelming corruption and deceit, one person's determination can ignite a spark of hope that transforms an entire community. Thank you for joining me on this journey, and remember, sometimes the truth is the most powerful demolition tool of all.